I just played Swords of Destiny, and it was rubbish. Today, we are playing the 2005 PS2 game Swords of Destiny, created by Artoon, the company that would later be known for the hilariously memeable Vampire Reign. Swords of Destiny was only released in Europe and Japan, so take that, America, this one is just for us. Unfortunately, the game doesn't have a 60Hz option, so it's not a very good conversion. So the game starts off with a tutorial to explain the moves and basic mechanics. All fine so far, no problems. Every hack and slash game of the time had some kind of gimmick, and this one's is called Sword Time. Basically, the way it works is if your lock-on goes red, attack, and you get to slash enemies up quickly. There's only a small time to do this before it goes back to blue, so it's all about timing. Not too bad. Starting the game proper, we find out the story. Evil demons lurk in the shadows, led by an evil empress who orders her minions to pillage the land. Years ago, a hero stood against this empress, using some divine swords, and managed to put her down. This hero then trained an apprentice, which is the character we are playing as. We then get an FMV sequence, which is actually not too bad, and features some cool wuxia style moves, and kicks off the crux of the tale. The demons are back, and it's up to us this time to stop them. As the first level starts, we start moving through the dojo and fighting the first set of demons. Defeating a demon usually drops some sort of weapon. These can be used later on to fuse with the divine blades to power them up in various ways. In addition, there are various statues and things lying around the stages which can be smashed open to reveal items, which can heal and have other effects. This is also how you get permanent power-ups to health too, so breaking them apart is essential. After dispatching a few more groups of demons, the glut starts to set in. Unfortunately, this is pretty much it in terms of the combat. You can do some regular attacks with square, knock enemies up into aerial combat, or do sword time and finish them off quickly. For most of the game, that is it. There are some throwable items which can freeze monsters and have other effects, but they don't factor into combos in any way, so pretty useless as they slow us down too much. By this point, it's becoming clear that the scenery is nothing to look at either. It's all just the same thing. There's a corridor bit, followed by a big square room of enemies, then a corridor bit, then another square room, rinse and repeat. After making our way through this endless repetitiveness, we finally make it to the first boss of the first level. We see the evil empress capture some lady as she spawns some big gladiator guy as the boss. This guy is much tougher than the regular goons, but utilise sword time and he goes down easy. It turns out the lady was the original hero's daughter, so we're off to save her and kill this empress. It's worth saying, by the way, that I am going to spoil the whole game, so if there is a single person out there that is desperately shielding themselves against spoilers for the 2005 game Swords of Destiny, you have been warned. The young lady tells us in some sort of dream that we need to find the Swords of Yi that contain divine beasts in order to defeat the Gyaki, so off to do that we go. We start by stumbling up the mountain and fighting some floating skulls. I will say that despite the general jankiness of the game so far, I do find the enemy designs quite interesting. They're certainly demonic, and some of them do actually look pretty cool. That's a bit more than I can say for the main character, which looks like my anime OC I drew when I was 13 and trying to be edgy. Stumbling our way up the mountain fighting waves and waves of never-ending enemies, we finally reach the first divine sword. This is much better than the standard sword, and it has an additional move which lets us do a special attack. It can also be upgraded using XP gained from killing enemies, which sounds good, but I must admit I noticed basically no difference across the game from levelling up. In addition to the main stages, there are challenge stages. These are optional, but reward us with various things, like additional weapons and items. They are not particularly interesting, usually just being a gauntlet of some kind with a load of baddies. After that, we have a level called Dragon Penetralia. Now, apparently according to Google, Penetralia means the innermost parts of a building, a secret or hidden place, but for some reason, I feel like if I say it too much, I'll get demonetised. We meet the Empress again, and at this point, she's starting to remind me of Rita Repulsa from the Power Rangers, sending down her minions to do her dirty work. This time she creates this big dragon guy, and honestly, it's a pretty cool boss, looking sort of like a top level Digimon. Unfortunately, the gameplay is exactly the same as always. Run around swiping at them until we manage to pull off a sword time, which runs down the health and ends things pretty quickly. That's it, no strategy, just the same old thing. Beating the dragon, we make our way through this lava mountain range, which features some of the first platforming in the game. The camera is technically controllable, but it has this bad habit of getting stuck right at the top, making the game at times feel like an old school isometric RPG, which means I can't see where I'm going and I keep missing the jumps. Eventually, we get the second Divine Sword, and we are treated to some absolutely A-star voice acting. I mean, this is absolutely top notch from Raging Tiger.
Awakening Sword-Bearer, attest to your true nature. For only true heroic men shall have me. I am Raging Tiger. I endow you with unequaled Herculean strength.
Next up is another short challenge stage, followed by a Sprawling Mausoleum. This level was a complete slog to get through, and I seriously considered just stopping the playthrough here and using what I had already recorded. Everything was completely grey. I felt like falling asleep and I was so bored. Did you know I could be playing something fun? What a wild concept. This one has maze-like elements in which we needed to hit these button things to open up doors in other places, which open up other buttons to open up more doors. At the end of the mausoleum is this door with these two seals outside it. Enemies will keep respawning if you don't destroy the seals, but you can't destroy the seals because the enemies keep swiping at you. It's simple enough to destroy the seals if you use sword time, but the enemies kept moving too far away from them to use it properly. At this point in the game, sword time is becoming a lot more unreliable too, with the time for lock-on being so small as to ending up being basically guesswork. Eventually I beat them and we get another cutscene. It's something about someone called Yang Wan and demon blood and being raised in a sanctuary, but honestly I'm so phased out of it by now that it's basically gibberish. The Power Rangers similarities continue as we get a glimpse of a new big bad that's basically Lord Zed, and we enter some kind of temple. This level just went on for ages, with constant streams of the same enemies over and over. It really makes you appreciate games like Devil May Cry that have actual fun and impactful combat when you have to play with such boring mechanics. It's just swinging away and swinging away. I'm just pressing buttons. At the end of this level, we get a new Divine Sword, and it's the coolest one yet, some kind of twin blade. At this point, I just wanted the game to end, so I skipped the optional challenge map and special battle as I didn't want to do it. After some more brilliant voice acting,
the spirit of flight dwells in me.
We reach the Netherworld, and it looks a little bit more interesting at first, with demonic imagery and crazy stuff all over the walls. Quickly though, it starts to feel more like a PS1 level. It actually gives me Soul Reaver vibes. Getting through all of that, and we finally reach the Empress, and it's time for a face-off. I quite like the room the battle is set in. It definitely gives boss battle feelings. Again though, the battle is like every single other battle. Keep swiping away until a chance for sword time comes up, use sword time and knock out most of her health. Uh-oh though, that was only her first form. She evolves into this four-legged jester thing, and if you thought that would bring with it some new mechanics, you are mistaken. It's the same thing. Swipe away until sword time, then sword time it. I feel a bit like I'm going mad. Disappointingly, that was not the final boss. This game is still not over. There's another level that takes place in this big castle, and it's nice to see that at least it has a bit of colour. There's nothing special about it, except some of the regular battles take ages. The big guys that were bosses earlier are now just regular enemies and can take an age to kill, and there are so many of them. Finally, and I really mean finally, it's time for the final boss of the game. This guy calls me Lei Yun, which is the first time I realised that's what the main character was called, and it's time to beat him and save the world or something. This guy uses some kind of lightning attack, and if you hadn't guessed it by now, I can tell you exactly what the strategy is to fight him. You won't believe it. It's just swiping away until you get a chance to use sword time, and then that knocks down almost all his health. That is it. What an exciting final boss encounter. My adrenaline is through the roof. Defeating him, it turns out the big bad was actually some sort of good guy in disguise, and he goes into the girl in some way. This causes the castle to crumble, and we fall through the sky, having rid the world from evil, or destroyed a mountain, not quite sure. The swords then tell us they can grant us any wish, which is nice, but we say no thanks, we're cool. They say yeah fine, and run away back to the mountain, which I guess is actually still there after all. And that is it. That's the game, the whole game, and nothing but the game. If you enjoyed watching it, I am really happy because I did not enjoy playing it. It's so egregiously repetitive and aggressively mediocre. I quite like playing a lot of the simpler action games that came out around that time, because they usually have some kind of interesting flair or mechanic that makes them fun, even if they aren't all blockbusters. But not this one. This one is just a slog, and I don't like it. Don't play it, it's boring. If you want to see me do more stuff, subscribe and leave a comment and do a like and things. Bye.